Today I'm in the picture-perfect south of England, a place not known for its dryness, and I'm driving once again the new facelifted Kia Sportage. But this one is a little different, because this is a diesel hybrid. Now I know I bang on about it all the time, but if you enjoy watching our videos, please make sure you subscribe and make sure you click the little bell icon next to our channel name, because it does make a difference. When you're notified and you watch the videos quickly, it really does make a difference. And make sure you like this video, make sure you comment on it, make sure you share it with other people, and make sure you visit newmotoring.com. Now I first had a chance to drive the new facelifted Kia Sportage on the Seeds International launch in Slovakia. But because of the way the day panned out, because of time restraints, I didn't actually have a chance to drive the Sportage. We didn't really have enough time to do 2 videos, so I had to stick to the Seed. Because there wasn't a video on the Sportage, what you didn't get to see was footage from inside Kia's factory, the place where they build the new Seed and the new Sportage. And what we had the chance to do was poke around all the generations of Seed and all the generations of Sportage. And what did I notice? What I noticed was just how far Kia has come. You look at the first generation Sportage and it is a tiny little thing. It looks very un-European really. It wouldn't really fit in today's world. I know it wouldn't fit anyway because it's tiny and safety regulations and quality. It's all come on such a long way, but it looks quite different to anything we had on sale in the UK at the time. Whereas as you move through the generations, the second generation Sportage, it gets a little bit bigger, the quality gets better. Then the third generation, again, gets a little bit bigger and the quality, again, big steps on. And then the fourth generation Sportage, this one, the facelift, it's just a world away from the first generation. Put the two side by side and it's little and large. It's quite funny. It's amazing to see the difference. And you can't ignore how important the Sportage has been to Kia in the past as their quality has improved, but also now it is still so important for them. It is the best-selling Kia model in the UK. 1 in 4 Kias sold in Europe is a Sportage. And truth be told, one of these is sold every 69 seconds. Every 69 seconds. I'd be happy if I sold a pencil every 69 seconds. That'd be a nice little income, let alone a whole car. So what's different with the facelift? Well, the lights are different, the front bumper is different, you can get black pieces of trim or chrome pieces of trim in different places, and the rear lights are different, and the rear bumper is different as well. And technically speaking, its drag coefficient is the same, even though it's actually 5mm longer. And if you go for a GT line model, that's actually 10mm longer. Technical, I know, and probably quite boring, but I just found it quite interesting. Inside too, there have been a few updates. It's not as comprehensive as the new Seed, but then again, this is a midlife refresh rather than an all-new model. So the dashboard has been changed slightly, the instrument cluster, the steering wheel, the air vents, little details have been updated slightly. Now the petrol engines are exactly the same as they were before the facelift, albeit with a few modifications to get through the most recent change in how cars are measured for emissions and fuel economy. You can have a 1.6 litre naturally aspirated petrol engine with 130 brake horsepower, or you can have a turbocharged 1.6 litre engine with 174 brake horsepower, and you can get that with all-wheel drive if you want to. As for diesels, well, that's a little bit more interesting. The old 1.7 litre diesel is gone. That's been replaced by a 1.6 litre. You can get that with either 114 brake horsepower or 134 brake horsepower, and again it's the more powerful version that you can get with all-wheel drive. Or you can have a 2 litre turbo diesel with a mild hybrid system. That's right, a diesel hybrid. There's a tiny little 48 volt hybrid system attached to the car's crankshaft that gives the engine a boost when you accelerate and recoups energy when you lift off or brake. Essentially, it takes the strain off the engine. It doesn't run around on full electric power. It doesn't roll around silently. It just gives the engine some help. You can only have it with all-wheel drive, and it's the most powerful diesel Sportage you can buy. It's got 182 brake horsepower, 296 pounds-feet of torque. 0 to 62 miles an hour takes 9.6 seconds, and the top speed is 125 miles an hour. That all means that it's the second fastest Sportage you can buy. The fastest is the top spec petrol with 174 brake horsepower and all-wheel drive and a double clutch gearbox. That'll do 0 to 62 miles an hour in 8.8 seconds compared to this 9.6. In terms of economy, it'll manage 48.7 miles to the gallon. And you've got to remember though that although this is the hybrid, this isn't the one that's been built solely for economy. What it gives you is the most powerful diesel, but a cleaner powerful diesel and a more efficient powerful diesel, because the other diesels will get between 54 and 57 miles per gallon. This just makes your performance more economical. The diesel engine itself is very quiet. It's a good diesel engine, but the hybrid system, I was so intrigued to drive it. I just wanted to know what it felt like because, well, a diesel hybrid, how many of those are there on sale? You can feel it working. You can feel this little boost of torque at times when the diesel engine wouldn't normally be giving you that shove. And as well, on the instrument cluster, you can scroll through different screens, and one of them it shows you when the system is working, what it's doing, whether it's pulling back energy or pushing it out. The suspension remains the same as do the brakes. You've got fully independent suspension front and rear, and you've got ventilated 305mm discs up front and solid 302mm discs at the back. The diesel hybrid Sportage is the heaviest Sportage you can buy. It's just a smidge over 1700 kilos. The lightest Sportage is the naturally aspirated petrol engine. That weighs just under 1580 kilos. Does it feel heavier? Yes, I think it does. This is only around 100 kilos less than a Stinger. When you accelerate, it feels pretty good. It feels reasonably quick for a diesel SUVs because you've got that boost from the hybrid system. But when you brake, you can feel that extra mass. But I think the biggest difference for me is that when you're just driving along normally, you can feel it just feels heavier somehow on its suspension. It's not unsettled, it's not bumpy, it doesn't feel like that extra mass is causing it massive problems. It just feels like it slumps more, it slumps deeper into its suspension than that lighter petrol. And again, when you get to some corners, you can just feel the extra weight. It's not as keen to respond as the lighter versions of the Sportage, so it's not as eager. What's good though is that the Sportage generally, this car included, doesn't really get unsettled by poor road surfaces or bumps. It feels very well engineered, very well sorted, and very well set up for UK roads. One final thing to think of is the brake feel. And actually, considering this is a hybrid, I think it's pretty good. Some hybrids, they just have appalling brake feel because, well, the brakes are recouping energy and sending it to the battery, so it just feels unnatural. The pedal doesn't feel right. In this, it feels pretty good, and actually it feels better than some of Kia's previous hybrids, but it's not quite, just not quite as good as a normal Sportage. The steering feels the same as it did in that petrol Sportage, but in that car I complained that at higher speeds the steering weight didn't really match up with what I thought the steering weight should be. I thought it should be a little bit heavier, and in this you've got a little button down here that's a drive mode button, and what that does is it changes the response of the engine, changes the response of the gearbox, but it changes the weight slightly of the steering. It makes it a little bit heavier, and that is an improvement. I think it feels much more natural when you're driving a bit quicker. Finally, gearboxes. In the normal petrol and diesels you can have either a 6-speed manual or a 7-speed double clutch. In the diesel hybrid you have to have an 8-speed automatic. For the most part, it's a very smooth gearbox. The only time it isn't particularly smooth is when you're in traffic, when the stop-start system is working. When the engine turns back on, when the system re-engages, sometimes you get a bit of a jolt and it kind of lurches forward a little bit. Not massively, but it's enough to be irritating. You have got paddles behind the steering wheel, and you can push the gear lever across into a manual mode, so you've got a bit more control. And when you do that, actually the response from the paddles is very good. Now, in the same way there's a C GT, will there ever be a Sportage GT, a slightly quicker version of the Sportage? Well, I hate to disappoint, but no, there will never be a Sportage GT. In my mind, I thought that'd be quite cool, having a Kia that's kind of like a Cayenne Turbo, but they're not going to do that. Prices for the new Sportage start at just over £20,000 and they rise all the way to £35,500. If you want the diesel hybrid, that will set you back at just over £33,000 if you go for the level 4, and if you go for the GT Line S, which is what this is, then it's $35,500. This is the most expensive Sportage you can buy. Now, I know the concept of a diesel hybrid might seem a little bit strange, but the fact that the hybrid system pushes the most powerful diesel slightly closer to the most economical diesel and gives you a boost of torque, I quite like that. And to feel the system working, to feel that little boost in torque, perhaps when you're not expecting it, I think it's fascinating.